Hello and welcome to another video with me, your host and mentor, Maven. Now, in today's video, we're going to pick up where we left off with in our last video. We are going to be covering what boilerplate code is, as well as how we can reduce that boilerplate code with a simple library known as Lombok. That being said, we're also going to cover how we can go ahead and add dependencies to our Maven project. And from there, we're going to be touching base on our service class. We're going to be changing it up from a class to an Enum. This is so that we can simply define some constants. What an Enum is basically it's more or less just a way to declare some finalized information or data. You'll see that when we change up our service class to be that of a enum, so that we can enumerate over some information. We're also going to be covering loops, so sit tight and we will cover a forEach loop. We're going to be iterating over an array of information, so we're also going to touch on arrays. That sounds exciting to you? Then fill up that favorite cup of coffee, load up that favorite IDE of yours, and let's dive on in. So, now that we've got our favorite IDE up and going, let's take a look at this. So, since we're going to be picking let's take a look at what boilerplate code is. So, in our example of a customer, our boilerplate code happens to be that of what is repetitively used, however, not necessarily required for the functionality of our program. The examples here are going to be the getters and setters that we created in our last video. And we're going to take a look at how we can get rid of those. So these are boilerplate code because they are stuff that is needed to be able to get and set the variables inside of the object. However, it is very much redundant information that gets used on basically every class with every variable, and it's something that basically you need this information, these getters and setters, inside of your .class file or the compiled Java file, but you don't necessarily want them inside of your actual raw Java file, because it just sort of takes up space, makes the class file look a little bit more cluttered than it is. But again, you don't want to have all this boilerplate code sitting inside of the class files or sitting inside of your Java files, but you do happen to want it inside of your class files. Now, we're gonna add a library or a dependency to our Maven project, and to do so, you go inside of the pom.xml, and we're going to make a simple tag here for dependencies. And we're going to make another one for dependency. So this will be a way to list out all of our different dependencies, and we're going to tell it what dependency or library we want. So in this case, the artifact is going to be that of Lombok, and we're going to go ahead and get that from the here should auto-populate that for us. But we're going to go ahead and get that from the Lombok repository. There we go, org.lombok, and we're going to let this pick the latest version for us. And we're going to go ahead and rebuild our Maven project. That's going to go ahead and add dependencies. You'll notice this little thing came here in our external libraries. You'll see now we have a Maven-based library that is org project Lombok. It is a Lombok and version 1.18.30. So What the hell does that do, Mike? All of these setters and getters can now be reduced or removed. We can simply use annotations, and don't worry about that. What an annotation is, I will get into that in a future video. But we're going to you typically start out an annotation with the @ symbol, and in our case, we're going to use the getter from Lombok and the setter from Lombok. This allows us to go ahead and get rid of all of these getters and setters, because these getters and setters, what this is these are annotations that are run at compile time. These can be either annotated for types, fields, or right on the source file, as we have here, or you can place them over each individual. Maybe you don't want to make all of the variables in the class accessible through getters and setters. Maybe you only want a couple to be. You can specify them on each individual field. Now, as you can see, that heavily reduced the amount of code that was in this file, and the only information that we have are the fields that we need. Now, technically speaking, customers generally don't change this information after it's written, after it's been created. So let's go ahead and mark this as final. But now, if it's final, we need to instantiate this information. Actually, let's not make that final. We'll talk about final later. When you make a variable final, it means that it has to be defined when the object is created, and it cannot be modified, hence its term final. Now, a constructor is just merely the word or the keyword public or private, followed by the class name. So in this case, it would be public customer, and then in parentheses would be the requirements in which you would define said customer. There are many ways to go about doing this. There are different design patterns, which we will also get into at a later time, for which you can construct and build different classes. There is a builder pattern. There is a just... actually, we'll just wait to get into the different types of design patterns. However, just be aware that there's many ways to create an object. So let's go ahead and dive into our employee. We didn't actually do any setters or getters in here, so we're going to make a getter, and we're going to make a setter. There we go. And we're actually just going to copy those, because we're also going to do so inside of our customer device. Surround that with getters and setters so that we can essentially reduce the code that's in our classes. Lastly, we'll do the same thing with this class, although we're not going to need the setter in this case, because we are going to be changing this to an Enum. Now, let me just get rid of all of this code first. There we are. Now, next, what we're going to do to make this a little bit easier to work with is we're going to make this an Enum so that we can enumerate over some information and return it. Now, what is it that we're going to be looking to enumerate over? Well, this here is where we're looking to mimic or mock our data or information. So what are some of the services that we're going to be offering to our customers? And what we're going to be offering said customers. Now, because this is a tech repair company, we're going to be offering a few services such as destroy, disk image, re-imaging, different services like that. So now we just simply, when we're creating an enumeration, all of the values that are in said enum are generally characterized in the uppercase form. So when we say that one of our services is destroy, we're going to call that destroy. Now, we have to define some information inside of here, which is going to be things like a price. So, for example, we'll say this is $20, and we're going to give it a description. Now, constructor that I talked about would need to be created here. So if we were to just simply hover over here, it's going to create a constructor for us. And again, this is a service. I'm going to come up with a value and a string. This is now going to be where we would define, or where we would set up that this dot service equals v, and this dot service description equals s. Our service name is actually going to be that equal to that of get name. This dot name. There we are. Now this dot name returns this value right here, the name of this service, so to speak. Now we're going to add a few different services in here. So now if you just bear with me for a moment, I'm going to pause this video and we're going to go ahead and fill out the different services that are in here. All right. So taking a look at this here, you'll see that I've got a description for each of our things, a price and a rough description for each one. Now this last one, on-site tech, is not a fixed rate. So you'll notice here, this is our polymorphism at work. This is method overloading, or in our case, constructor overloading, where we have a single constructor, and we are creating, well, I could actually fix this up a little bit here by saying the service price, the service description, and then passing in true as a variable here. Now this here is what polymorphism is. It allows us to overload a single method. So even though our constructor is only a single constructor, we have overloaded it by adding in two parameters in the parentheses at first, taken for our price and our description. But then we also overloaded it by adding a third parameter in there to tell whether or not it is an hourly or a fixed rate. So this here is overloading at its finest. You'll also see down here I made a slight change to the service name. It is now this dot name dot replace underscore with a space. So for the on-site tech, it is going to appear as just on-site tech as compared to on_site_tech. You'll see these still have some squiggly lines underneath them because these could be declared as final because technically they do not change after they've been written. Same with this can be written. And because we are setting this, this can also be set as final because it's being declared or defined within the constructor. So now looking at all of this, what can we do from here? Well, we're going to go back to our Galave Studios. We're going to create a new Java class. This one is just going to be the main class. So the project itself is for a company named GlabTech. So we are just going to name this main class of our file GlabTech. So we'll go ahead and hit enter, create this, And inside here, we are going to make a public static void main. This is basically the main function. This now declares this class as the main class. You'll notice that there are a couple of little play buttons that have been added. This just represents that this is the class that your JVM or your Java will look for to run the application. This is declared as a static variable because JVM needs to be able to call it anywhere. And there is no change in it. It is very fixed, very much static. So now, what do we want to do? We could do the very simple hello world. And that will just print out hello world at the screen. But we're looking to print out our services. And not only print out our services, but we want to print out each and every one of them, but we don't want to do it in a painful way. So what are we doing? We are going to create a copy of this. But let's show you what happens right now. If I was to just run this as here, run the lab tech, and it'll just print out hello world. Just for the sake of, as you know, hello world. Hey. Y'all seen that cat before I did? Hit that like button. Look at that. Hello world. Hi, Java. All right, so now let's do something cool. We want to print out every service. And in order to print it out, we're going to do a very easy, very simple forEach loop where we're going to loop over each element in this array and print out its nation. So, we are first going to need to make an array list to begin with. So let's make a list of all of our services. So var, we're going to call this services. And this is going to be equal to that of service. There we go. Our service class. And then we're going to go ahead and we want to get the values. You'll see here that this is service with square brackets. That is an array. That defines just an object or an array of items. Now, what an array is simply a container of, you'll see here that this is what it looks like. It is service with square brackets, service equals service dot values. The reason I write it like this is just because it's only a temporary variable, so we don't need to technically define it. I mean, technically, this is what that is, but Java, I'm using Java 21. I forget which specific version it came out in, but Java is able to understand the var keyword as variable, and it's smart enough to assign the left hand based off of the right hand. So, yeah. So now we're going to take a look at these, and we want to... there's a few different ways that we can go about this. You'll see that my AI has just generated what's known as a forEach. This is simply for each element inside of the array, do something. In this case, for each service inside of services, we want you to simply print out the service. And what that's going to do is it's going to look at the service class, and it's going to print out the service.toString method. Every object has a very simple toString method, which can be overridden in each individual class if you'd like to. Again, there's polymorphism because you can be overriding the string method. Now, Lombok, you could add a simple annotation of the class toString or at toString. This will generate a unique toString that's a little bit more readable than the Java-based toString. And this just will continue or will consist of the different variables inside of the object all concatenated together or all stuck together in a string. But for our case, we're pretty much going to be taking this same loop. And again, I just happen to like the var keyword. Now, what are we going to do here? I want to build a message here. This is going to be something that I want to print out, but it is going to be a one second. So here I want to put in a formatted string. So we're going to format this string, which is going to be the thing. So we're going to put this down to here, you down here. So do this up so that it's easy. So we're going to say service or service name, and we're going to use %s, which is going to be the % symbol and followed by a specific keyword. Allows us to replace this specific thing with something else. In our case, it is going to be that of service dot name. Get service name. Go. Now, after this, we're going to be looking to do a slight tab or an indent. So that's going to be a \t, which allows us to tab or indent at this point in the string. And we're going to then say service cost. And this time here, again, we're going to this time, because it's number, and we want to go just to 2 decimal points, we're going to put it in as a 0.2f. And this will tell our formatter that we are looking to get just the decimal value, but to the second decimal point. The last thing we want is the server description, which we're going to have as another string, so %s, followed by a line break so that we can put the next thing in. So %n for a new line. So now let's go ahead and add in the cost. So this is going to be service dot get service price. And lastly, then we're going to have is the service dot get service description. Here we are. And from there, we're going to want to print out that message. So we're going to use a system out to print that message. Now, this could be written a little bit differently. For those of you who are wondering how to print out messages, this is how we print out a simple line. ln is just line. So system.out or system.err, which is either just a straight out message or an error. All that does is the err will simply, for all intents and purposes, make the text that comes to the console inside of IntelliJ red. It's usually used so that we could also set outputs and definitions, such as whenever we want an error, maybe we want to log that error somewhere, we can set up different things like that. But for now, for all intents and purposes, we are looking to just use the output, and we're looking to print a line. That line happens to be this string message. Now, if we wanted to write this differently, we would just copy this part. We would throw this in here, but instead of saying line, we would say f. which means to print a formatted message, which is the same as this formatted message up here. So we could actually make that easier by just simply saying print formatted message here. So now let's take a look and see what that looks like. So now if we run our program, we'll see it compiling the code, running, boom, hello world, and then you'll see service name is destroy, tab, and then the service cost is $22. There's a little tab there, I promise. Service description, and the description, followed by a line break at the end, so that we move on to the next line. And the service name is reimage, costs, description, yada yada. You'll see that each one comes out as we intended. Now, what does that really help us do? Well, to be honest with you, not a whole lot. I just wanted to show you a way of using some information. Now, how we would generally populate this would not be an enum. It would be left as a class. But we would generally populate this information either from a database, ideally, or we would populate it from something like a JSON file or a CV file, like some sort of Excel spreadsheet. We would be pulling information from one source and then populating it into define what our different services are. So that way we would have a place where we can store the information and update it, so that way our application doesn't need to be rebuilt every time we add new information to it. Because if we were to store information just this way, then every time we add a new service or change a new price or maybe change up what a description is, would mean that we would need to redistribute the application, which is very, very not ideal. Ideally, you would want to just write this once so that it can be pulling information from some sort of a data structure or database. Database would be the ideal situation. So in our next video, we are going to look at how we can introduce Spring Data and Spring Boot. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is and how it's going to help us, because we're looking to persist information past this state, because we want to be able to keep this information even if our application decides to turn itself off for the day, or we're done with it, we close our application, go to sleep like my cat behind us. Like if the program needs to get turned off for maintenance, shut down, updated, whatever, once the application is stopped, we want a way to persist the information that we have. Very much like when you go to sleep at the end of the day, you want to be able to remember everything that happened the day before. Your brain persists most of that into its own sort of data structure. We're going to look at how we can go ahead and save this in. Well, maybe not in the next video, actually save it, but in the next video, we're going to take a look at how we can go ahead and persist the information. So basically what that means is I want to take it out of this Enum, and we're going to put it into a, for all intents and purposes, SQL database. We're not going to bring in some SQL code. We're not going to touch SQL yet. Don't worry. Don't start panicking saying, oh, this is not basic. Yeah, it is. We're going to keep things simple. We're going to keep things real basic, just Java. I'm going to show you how we can save this information how we can fetch this information. And then after that, who knows? Stay with me and find out. If you've learned something in this video, if you've enjoyed it, give a thumbs up. If you enjoy my cats in the background, give a thumbs up. If you are looking, if you're looking to get notified of the next video, then by all means hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you haven't already, jump into our Discord, get your voice heard, talk with us, talk with me, talk with our community. It's a growing area. It's something I'm trying to start up. It's a small little place to get help with code, to talk freely about your code, your projects, whatever you want. I'm very open myself about some of the projects I'm doing. And other than that, if you've been watching these videos and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit that sub button. It really helps me out. Really shows me that this is worth it and that this is going to be something people want to see. So again, if in the next video we are going to be getting a little more advanced, still staying pretty basic. Thank you very much if you sat through my ramble, or if you just ignored me and watched my cat sleep in the corner and rearrange yourself and get comfortable. If that's the case, you want more cats, more code, more coffee, more glave. Let's go. Hit that thumbs up, hit that likes, and we'll see you in the next video.